Hello and welcome to Reimagining Love. I'm Dr. Alexandra Solomon. I have been studying relationships for over 20 years as a couples therapist, a professor, an award-winning author, and as a wife, mother, daughter, sister, and friend. Now, I'm inviting you into this space each week as I dig into some of the toughest and most fascinating relational dilemmas of our time. If you want to discover how to create vibrant and loving relationships in your own life, you have come to the right place. This is Reimagining Love. Hi there, welcome back to Reimagining Love. I am excited to share today's episode with you. We're going to be diving into a fantastic new book called Romances and Practicalities, which was written by Lindsay Jill Roth, an award-winning television and live events producer who has created and developed a wide variety of programming globally, including original content for NBC, BET, ESPN, the Grammys, and more. She is the former producer of Emmy-nominated Larry King Now, and the creator and executive producer of Haley Duff's Real Girls Kitchen. Lindsay's new book weaves her own love story with 250 research-backed questions spread across 12 categories, including money and children and chores and sex. And Lindsay designed these questions to help folks develop deeper intimacy and to open up about what they're looking for in an intimate partnership. And in this conversation, you'll hear about her budding romance with her now husband, as well as the couples that she spoke with who have used her system and the wisdom and practical guidance she's garnered from the clinical experts she interviewed for the book, including yours truly. I love that Lindsay is urging us to view expansive and thoughtful dialogue as something sexy, not just vital, as we embark on the process of getting to know someone that we think might be our person. Lindsay also helps me out with a very thoughtful listener question at the end of the episode about dating across socioeconomic class. So definitely listen until the end to catch our thoughts. I hope that you enjoy our chat. Lindsay, welcome to Reimagining Love. I'm so glad to be with you.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here with you.
I'm really excited to talk to you about your book. It's fantastic. You do something that's one of my favorite things to do, which is just invite people to get really mindful and really holistic about their relationships. Plus, I was like in on the ground floor when this book was like just the apple of your eye. So I'm excited to really like dig in and peel it back and hear all of what your process was like for you.
Well, thank you so much. Just for everybody listening, it's really hard to get a book out. And when you start with just a concept and a dream, you only hope that people like you will sign on and talk to you about it and appreciate your concept as much as you did for me. So thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it was easy to be in your corner. It was fun. A fun place to be.
I agree.
So I would love for you to start the way that we always start with our guests here on Reimagining Love, which is with our question. You ready for the question?
I'm ready. I've been thinking about my answer, actually.
Okay. All right. Well, I would love for you to talk a little bit about how you are reimagining love in one of your important relationships these days.
So for a little background, I am a mom of two, and I've just written this book, Romances and Practicalities, about romantic love. So I've really pounded that for a long time. And I've spent a lot of time talking with experts like you for this book about that. So my reimagining love personally right now, though, is I'm looking at friendship love. And I've been thinking a lot about friends and how we show our love to friends and how it's really important to me to be a good friend. It's just one of those things that I take so much pride in. And as you get older and your friendships change and evolve, there are some friends in my life who I'm not feeling the love, and I feel like it's one-sided, and I really feel, because I take such pride in friendships, I'm at this point, and for a while now, giving quite a bit more. And if I'm being really honest with you, which I always have been when we've spoken, it's really painful. And I find it's so funny. I find, like, when you write columns, or Lori Gottlieb or other people write columns about painful friendships, I skip over them because
Oh,
I'm in a raw place about it. So this is actually the first time I'm really speaking about it. And I'm reimagining love in a way of making peace, I think, and working hard with myself to make peace with the fact that I have some beautiful friendships that they may not be what they were. And I will always look on them as beautiful and fulfilling when they were in that sweet spot. And it's okay to let them go. And it's okay to mourn them and grieve them and be sad about it. And just letting myself recognize that I have a really full life and a full, wonderful, exciting set of things happening right now. And it's okay when things like this happen. So I wasn't thinking about that until you reminded me that we're going to go here on the podcast. And I thought, if I'm being as authentic with you as I can possibly be,
yeah.
this is that place.
Thank you for talking to us about, yeah, just how real and how present and how front of mind this is for you about, yeah, about the love that happens in friendship. And then, like, I guess I'm curious to know, are you in this place now because you are realizing that the terms of engagement in this friendship were that you would do what you always had done? Like, that there was a lot of initiation on your part that was the foundation of this friendship, and that if you were to shift your initiation, then what gets revealed is, oh God, this friendship really was so dependent on what I was doing to keep it going. Is that the process for you?
100%. I think with any deep relationship, that for quite a while before you're ready to accept that and do something about it and be okay with, if someone says to you, "Oh, how is so and so doing?" There's a big difference if this so and so is that person, in saying, "He's great, she's great, we're good, she's great. Oh, they're happy," or whatever it is, versus saying, "I don't know, we're just not as close as we once were, but I wish them well." And it takes a lot to admit to yourself and then to the world that it's okay. And it's painful. It's a form of a breakup, I think.
Absolutely.
Especially when the other person may not know that you're breaking up with them, but because to them it's probably fine as it is, but to you, you're holding on to something from the past.
I gave a talk in October to a room full of, I don't know, 200 therapists about supporting clients through breakups. And in my mind, it was primarily focused on relationship breakups and divorces. But the questions from the audience were nearly all about supporting clients through friendship breakups. This is it's really present right now, and it's so painful. And I think, the way that this part about, you avoiding columns that were about friendship breakups, like, I think your avoidance behavior, like, really just highlights that none of us want to talk about it because it's really painful. And I think there's shame sometimes in the depth of the feelings that we have. I think there's a way in which we've been socialized that romantic relationships are up here and friendships are really kind of like accessories. They're not the center core, but that's not what it feels like inside of our hearts. Friendships feel really, really, really central. And so the depth of that loss is so huge and so big and so kind of invalidated in our culture. We don't have a lot of language and ritual and ways of talking about it as you are now.
I think too, something that I have felt is, when you're the person who is keeping up the relationship and you're the one that's reaching out and you're the one who is really, as you said, keeping it together, there's something when you actually think about it that you have to face. And it's the same as a romantic relationship. It's the same exact thing. It's that they don't want it with me anymore. And that's painful. Like me, I'm awesome. Like I'm so cool. I'm so great. I've been doing everything that I've always been doing and it used to work. Life happens, things happen, but it's coming to terms with they might not see me as their person anymore. And then when it only causes you grief or stress or disappointment because you set yourself up for those situations by putting in more effort, it's painful. And at some point, I haven't been divorced, right? I hope to never be divorced. But at some point, someone has to say, I'm not putting myself through this anymore. And that is for me, that's the reimagining love part is the putting that love, cherishing that relationship because it was good. It's not a failure, none of it. Putting it in a love place, but moving on with my life and not allowing the pain anymore. And it's hard.
Yep. Yep. Two things are hard. It's hard to resist the urge to turn the sadness into shame, which is what you're speaking to, of like you really have had to hold on to. I am good. I am fun. I have a bountiful life. The people in my life are lucky to have me in their life. So to hold on to like I can be sad about the loss of this friendship without turning it into commentary on me and my shame. That's one part of what I hear you saying. And then the second part is that we can mourn the loss of something and just leave it as it was good. I think sometimes when we step away from something, the urge is to trash it, to say, if we're moving on from it, it must have been bad. So can you let it was good at the time that it was, for the function it served, what it taught each of us, what it gave, and it can be blessed and left there and moved on from without saying, because we're moving on from it, therefore it must not have been good. That's a real hard one, but a really important one.
It is hard. And I hope that people will be able to do that with romantic relationships, which is probably even harder than certain friendships, except when they're those deep, deep, deep friendships for sure. And then I think you get to a place which I'm actually really happy being at where you're like, I am just done with this making me feel terrible. I'm done. I'm a great friend. I'm a great friend. I love being a good friend. And I'm not going to put that great friend energy into someone who just doesn't want it or appreciate it. And that's a beautiful place to be at.
Yep. Because then you get to look ahead and where do I get to offer? What do I get to offer next? Where will my energy go? Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Okay. Let's talk about your book,
Okay.
please, Lindsay. Oh my Lord. Okay. I mean, we're just going to start with the title because what you have named this book of yours is Romances and Practicalities. And you all will see when you get your copy of this book. I mean, the cover is beautiful. We were talking before we started about the spine game on this book, the spine.
Yeah, I'm going to show it. I have it right here. Honestly, this is the first time the hardcover is being viewed. Truly, like this is
It's
it.
gorgeous. It's just gorgeous.
To look at that spine game.
Spine game is on point. And just the font, like the font with just the two different fonts between the word romances and the word practicalities. So start by telling us about what for you is the relationship between these two things, romance and practicality. Are they synonyms? Are they antonyms? Are they frenemies? Like what's the relationship between these two things, romance and practicality?
So in my mind, you can have an epic romance when you address the practicalities. So I believe that the practicalities enables you to have the most amazing romance, not the opposite. The romance and the titillating, fun, wonderful butterfly in your stomach that can tank once you talk about practical things, that's actually backwards for me. I believe that once you get the practicalities out of the way, and obviously I'm not just leaving people with that, this book tells you how to do it and makes it really fun, then you can enjoy a life of beautiful romance. Life is hard. I'm not saying that, life and romance is easy, but once you address one, you set yourself up for healthy romantic love. And that's amazing.
Well, and right there, like that's a record scratch moment for us because you are in that declaration that it is practicality that opens us up to romance. You are flipping the script on what we're taught our whole lives, which is that romance in and of itself solves all the problems. Romance is that is like the top, the prized kind of a thing. And you're inviting us to say, actually, it's the conversations about practicality. It's the two of you sitting shoulder to shoulder, looking at all these different facets together that creates the foundation for romance.
Not only does it create the foundation, it's super sexy. And when you address some of these things that I talk about in the book, like you're just throwing this book down and having sex right then and there. Because actual communication, when you open yourself up to someone that you care about, is so sexy and beautiful that it takes you to a
Yeah.
next level in your romance.
Right. It is far from something to be feared, but rather to be played with. It's just those conversations are, yeah, they are fuel. What you've done, when we talked about your idea for this project, like what you've turned, I had no idea what it was going to end up looking like. But what
Me
you've
either.
done is, yeah,
I had a dream and a plan, and I did my best.
God. Well, you tell us the story. You're telling us a lot of stories. You're telling us the love story between you and the Brit, who is now your husband and the father of your babies. And you are inviting us into what you've created, which is the R&P methodology. It's a set of 250 questions, but you've made the journey in and through the R&P method. You've made it really fun by telling us not just the love story between you and the Brit, but you also went and talked to so many experts and regular people, and you just tell so many stories along the way. So
You being one of them.
me being one of them, it was really fun to talk to you about this. Tell us what you learned in the process. Like what got cemented for you? What was an eye-opener for you in your journey?
So I created this book not from my high horse from this amazing romance. We all have those friends who when when we're wanting to find our person, we have the person who's dating someone who's like, I'm with the best. My boyfriend, my girlfriend is the best. They have this, and you're looking for you're thinking, okay, I get it. But I needed a tool when I was dating. I was losing myself. I wanted it, but I didn't know what it was. And I was dating, and I was, I'm a super confident person in my career and in my job and in a lot of life elements. But for whatever reason, I was not a confident dater. And I found myself retreating into thinking about things like, I'm heterosexual, so I was dating men. So what does he want me to say in this instance? What's the right answer in this instant? And that is a terrible way to approach life partnership. And I got to a point where most people were coupled, and I realized that I needed a tool to help me understand my wants and needs better so that I could achieve what I was hoping to achieve, not by finding the person on paper, but finding a person I could have a great relationship with where I was unafraid to be me. And so I learned that I needed this product and that I wasn't alone in needing instruction on what my wants and needs and goals were and how to assess them to then find the best partner that I could. And, I learned that we all know communication is hard. It's hard. It's the easiest thing to do, and it's the hardest thing to do. I learned how our backgrounds really inform who we are and who we become. It's a default setting that we're pre-programmed at. And I learned that sometimes your choice of partner really helps you understand where you came from. But I also learned that you shouldn't wait till you find your partner to understand that. You should be asking yourself so many questions, and there are 250 of them in here because everybody's different. And there are so many different on ramps in the book to learn about yourself and then to go over with a potential partner or with someone else. I also learned that it's a lot easier to revisit something once you've talked about it before, or once you've had a conversation about it before. Meaning, if you're going into an important relationship and you've spoken about sex or family history or money, it's that much easier to talk about it in your future if it's not the first time you're bringing it up.
all of these 250 questions, you've organized them around 12 themes?
Yes. And the book my story weaves through. So I address these chapters in the book as I tackled them in real life.
Which is why the animals and pets is the first one, which I love. I love that there's a whole chapter about animals and pets because it is central and it's a important place to talk not just about early experiences that shape your beliefs and your needs, but it also gets to so many things around caregiving, interdependence. So yes, but that chapter is first because you and the Brit faced that one.
Almost killed my parents' dog that we were dog sitting. Yep. We'll just put that out there. But it's a low barrier to entry. It's a low barrier to entry, right? You're sitting across from someone and you say to them, "Oh, did you have any pets growing up?" And they say to you, "I actually had a snake." And you run out the door because you're petrified of snakes. Or you find out that they had a cat or a dog and you learn how they are as a caregiver. And they have no idea that you're thinking about that just based on the question of if they had any pets growing up.
What I really love about your process, and actually this became part of the book, was that I really love that your positioning is you're not saying to your RNP reader, your romances and practicalities reader, you're not saying, okay, this is your list of questions. And what you're going to do is you're going to ask your partner and then you're going to just ensure compatibility. It is put these questions in between the two of you and explore them together. And these are gateways or portals into understanding more about each other, but also more about yourself. So it's not an assessment tool to see if you're sitting across the table from Mr. Right or Mrs. Right. It is about creating these openings that then help you assess the degree to which the two of you are going to be viable co-creators together of a relationship. There's a really important difference there.
Huge. I don't know that anyone's articulated it as beautifully as you just did, but I think people don't always know what to ask a potential partner. And this is also a nice way for people to look at this list and say, "Oh gosh, of course we should talk about that. I never thought of that."
Yep. So we mentioned the animals and pets. I mean, we could do a whole conversation about that one. That one's really important. But I also I wanted to bring up cohabitation because I love that you come through loud and clear with something I think is an often missed point, which is that the research does show that couples who live together before marriage do have a higher risk of breaking up. But you get us very quickly to the point that it's not cohabitation in and of itself. It's about, are the two of you clear, the degree to which the two of you are clear and aligned around the why.
Yeah, so it's not when you cohabitate, it's how you cohabitate. It's the thoughtfulness that you put in to your cohabitation. Look, for those of you who are listening who are in cities, right? We all know one of your leases is up and it's like, I spend every night at your place anyway, so doesn't this make sense? That's fine. But it's fine once you take that situation and you explore everything that it has to do around it. And you ask all these questions that are adjacent to your living and your money and your food and your families, because that all comes into play. So it's the thoughtfulness, not the timing.
Yeah, there is an idea in my field. It's called decide, not slide. That this goes better when the couple decides to live together rather than slides into living together. And I think there is a kind of privilege in deciding. So often it is sliding. There are realities, there are financial realities that sometimes make it like, let's just freaking go for it, even if we aren't able to be super mindful. But even if it is like this is happening based on a significant practicality, it's not either, I mean, to the point of your whole book, it's not about either or. It's either practical or it's romantic. If we're doing it for a practical reason, okay, let's have some intentional conversations. And you got those questions in the book.
And the intentionality is what makes it romantic. So you can have the practical and it becomes romantic with the intentionality. Decide, not slide. I love that. I've never heard that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it's like, that's nice. It is nice to decide. But sometimes people are sliding, like you said, because of leases and because of finances and because, right, we're here all the time together anyways. All right. Well, it doesn't mean that it should happen without conversation.
Right. So there is a difference there, by the way. So logical doesn't mean practical. right?
Mm.
Logical. The logic to that is that it's logical. I'll move in with you. That's not assessing the practicality behind it. You still have to do the work.
And the work doesn't break the spell. It doesn't break the romantic spell.
I promise it doesn't. I
No,
promise.
it's right. You are here living to tell about it.
I am.
I liked also your conversation with Nate Berkus, who of course is a beloved, trusted, like well-known designer. And so then we were talking about like, okay, so you're bringing your spaces together, or you're starting to share a space, and you talked with Nate Berkus about what happens when there are two distinct designs. His now husband, I'm sure they've been married for a while now, they have really different tastes. And he talked to you about like what, here again, like it's not the compatibility of like, oh my God, I can only be with you if we have the same design taste. But what did you learn from him around the opportunity there to bridge different design tastes with different visions for how to create a home together?
So it's funny because he is talking about two design worlds coming together, but actually his advice has much more global appeal when you think about it. So he said, if your partner is a hard no, you stop. Think about that. I could have been talking about design there. I could have been talking about sexual acts there. I could have been talking about money there. If your partner's a hard no, then you stop. Right? So that's one. And then on the flip side, if there's a maybe, go for it and really explore and communicate and talk about what this could be for you and have a dialogue and be open to what your partner, potential partner is saying. And then the one other thing that I was so grateful to Nate for going there with me was he let me ask him about losing his former love, and his current husband is, what words did he use? He basically said, because I asked a question that was, how do you bring in someone like that and really honor and cherish their memory when they're no longer here, but not have it be threatening to a partner, a current partner? And he said, well, it's not me, actually. It's my partner who had to be open and not threatened by what was a past situation of mine. And I love that he said that, because a lot of people are going to be in partnerships after they've lost someone and are going to want to honor them in some way. And whether that's a photograph or, as he did, a middle name of one of his children, having the confidence, which stems from communication, in the partnership that you're building to honor someone from your past is so beautiful. And I'm so grateful to Nate for going there with me.
I was really glad that you had asked him about that. I think that is another way in which these romantic ideas get us into trouble, which is that we can only have one great love story, or that the first love story is the best love story and whatever comes next is somehow secondary or less than. I think that was a really important reminder in that conversation and what you're bringing to us now. But it's also that it had less to do about how Nate brought in the memory of his first husband, and more about how Nate's current husband was able to receive that, and Nate's current husband really being able to like make that space inside of himself to know in part that like the way that Nate got to him was through that love story, right? There's so much like just sort of trusting that whole process, and that it doesn't somehow mean that Nate's husband today is less than, or there's no threat here. That was really nice, though, that Nate's go-to was empathy.
When I created this system and I was going through it to create the system and write the book, I was on my way up with my first marriage still. And I hadn't realized until people after people after people after people who were out of one, either a marriage or very significant relationship or long-term relationship, were using this as a tool for their next relationship. I initially didn't realize how impactful it would be for those people. You can't solve everybody's issues or problems or desires or wishes with one tool, but I have managed to find a way of hitting people in vastly different stages of their personal journeys. And I think, as someone who wrote this and created this, that is so touching.
Right. That's really cool that like something you hadn't consciously thought of or intended ends up being of service anyway. Nonetheless, that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you anyways. Let's just do it now, which is how would somebody use this process, at midlife? Yeah, what are the differences? What do you find to be especially salient, or what would you want folks who are in midlife, maybe coming into a second marriage or just even partnering up, for the first time in a deep way at midlife? What are some thoughts that you have about that?
So, to what we talked about earlier, is hopefully they can get to a place where they can be, finished with whatever has happened in their past, but grateful for it and understand what it taught them, whether good or bad. And they can have that in a place where, it's okay and they're ready to move on. After that, I find the best thing to do is actually read this book and go through these questions and figure out your own point of view for them. Because when you've been coupled or partnered for a long time, sometimes you lose yourself and you lose your own perspective because you've had to make decisions based on everybody else around you. And, you're still going to have to do that to some aspect based on the way you've set up your life. But figure out what's important to you and then take these questions. And look, for people who I've found who are a bit older, they don't wait as long to ask some of these questions. They get right in there because they don't want to waste their time and they don't want to waste anyone else's time. And what I keep saying, blame me, whether it's I've read this book and there are a few things I want to ask you. Do you mind going there with me? Or I'm doing this project. Let's jump in. Or just tossing some of these questions into conversation. Look, you don't want to just be right and have someone else be wrong. These are a jumping off point to start a conversation. But understanding what your needs are and meeting your needs where they're at is the first step in taking the next step.
As you say all that, it makes me think also about how when there is, Logan Ury was the first person I heard say it this way that, early in our life, our relationships are like kind of like startups, it's like two startups. And at midlife, it's more like a merger, like a merger of like two significant corporations. And so I think that sometimes what I find is that people in midlife who are in these more like merger situations where there are two homes, two sets of pets, two sets of kids, sometimes two sets of adult kids or grandkids that are involved. It's more of a merger of significant corporations. And those practicalities feel they can feel more urgent, more pressing. They can feel sometimes, I think, more tangly. But what I would want people to really remember is that like love itself is not, there's no age stamp on that. There's no time limit on that. And so it's like, yes, there are these tricky things to have conversations about. But if your compass north is that it is these conversations that like we deserve to have these conversations because it's in the conversations that we are fueling and creating the space for us to tap into the love and the romance and all of that stuff. So it's like we do this because we deserve to have the the love and the connection that can like stem from these conversations rather than feeling ashamed of having to have these conversations or burdened by these conversations.
No, give yourself the gift of these conversations. And a lot of people think, oh, we came from the same city, we came from the same town, we knew each other growing up, this, that, and the other. We don't have to ask those questions because we know the answer to them. Please don't skip over those questions. They are just as important because it's so easy to presume you know the answer, especially if you're getting together with someone you've known for a while. You think you might know the answer, but you still need to have the conversation. So, look, there's a kids chapter, children chapter. And most people think that only has to do with
Should you have them? Do you want to have them?
correct. But if you're
Mhm.
in midlife and you are blending families, as you say, and there's blending families, or even if your children are adult children, you need to have the conversation about kids and family and children and what that dynamic looks like and what it means for you. Children doesn't only mean kids.
There's a part of the book where you and the Brit are at a museum and he says something to you about like, how are you still single? Is that what he said?
He said it repeatedly, actually, and tell me this is what you're going for here. But I learned a really, really big lesson from the scenario that you're talking about. Really big.
And I hear this a lot. People having shame about being single. I don't know how to talk about being single. And I was like, okay, when Lindsay's on the show, we're going here because this is a biggie. Okay, so go.
So I was dating this man, the Brit, who I'm now married to. So we know it worked out well, right? And he kept on saying to me, "How are you still single?" And he meant it. At the time, it sounded like it was a compliment-ish, right? Where it was like, "You're beautiful, you're smart, you're funny, you're still on the market. I just don't understand. What's wrong with you? When's the shoe gonna drop?" kind of stuff. And I would just hear this and internalize this as, "I'm still single, there's something wrong with me." Here's the thing. What I learned, and I hope whoever's listening will be inspired enough to read the full story in the book. I learned that those questions had nothing to do with me. None. None. Zero. They had to do with something that he experienced in his childhood that made him afraid that this woman that he was falling in love with was going to pull the rug out from under him and be completely different. And he would be married to her or in too deep, and suddenly things would change. And once I realized that, I was like, oh, oh my God. Oh my God. I've been internalizing this and taking it personally. Now, I had to have the courage in what we were creating to say to him, it hurts my feelings when you say that, which is hard for me, for people pleasers. It's hard to say things like that. And we would have a conversation about it, but that didn't solve it until I learned something about his family. And the pieces came flooding together. It was like that. Like I was like hit in the face with a moment. And it was like, oh my God, this really has nothing to do with me. Lindsay, get over yourself. Like we internalize so much stuff, whether it's with our family, our work, our this, that, and the other, especially as women, we just spin on things. And it was like, I don't know, like 50 pounds was gone off my shoulders at that point. And I'm sure you see this all the time, really, truly. And I'm sure you want to say it has nothing to do with you, but you probably can't always say that.
Yes, it's as women, but it's like whatever we feel tender about, it's hard to keep in mind that, wait a minute, I feel tender about this, but there's also an entire narrative on the other side of the street that is informing my partner asking this question. It's like it didn't even occur to you.
I wasn't looking at him at all. I was only either looking at myself or blaming myself or you know why? Because I was insecure about it. So he, without even knowing it until I told him, he was playing into my exact, I was single. I thought I was doing a good job. I thought I was opening up. I was trying really hard and it takes a toll. And so he played right into my insecurity when he actually thought he was complimenting me.
Yes, right. And by the way, he also, it sounds like he hadn't connected those dots for himself. What he knew that like the sort of like top level of the surface was like, I don't understand why Lindsay is single. I'm really lucky. Like and it really was like he was perplexed. And he didn't understand that actually this like little boy part of him was like coding this as danger. This felt threatening. Like your availability to him felt threatening, that I don't get to I'm suspicious about this. It's hard. We massively underestimate, I think, how freaking hard it is to let good stuff in. Because if you let the good thing in, then you have to settle and you have to savor. Like that is a freaking challenge. And so he was, in some ways, yeah, protecting himself from that vulnerability by keeping it, just keeping it as this question, like by staying in that place of it being perplexing. Perplexing is less vulnerable than.
Well, yeah. And so was I, by the way, because he was seeing the confident Lindsay. He was seeing like the happy, confident, positive version of me. I wasn't showing him that vulnerability yet in that way.
Because early on when he would ask you the question, you would give an answer back like what?
I was waiting for you. Why are you still single? I was waiting for you. Or I just haven't met my person. Then it would evolve. I just haven't met my person yet. And it would slowly strip away the cheeky, playful to, hey, I'm sure you're saying that from a good place, but it actually really hurts my feelings because I don't know what you're getting at. I'm me. And then boom, then we had to face it.
And in the facing it, that's a deepening then of emotional safety and trust.
Well, and it's really funny, by the way, that you bring this up, because we were in bed the other night and talking about different stories and the book launching and all of that. And he was making some joke about, well, maybe I should read the book before, everyone else gets to read it. And trust me, he's read the book. He's okayed everything in the book. But this subject came up again. And so I said to him, I was like, so are you still waiting? And he was like, I'm still waiting. You still haven't shown me anything that I'm afraid of. It's been better than I could have expected. And just that's lovely after more than a decade.
Absolutely. Absolutely. To feel affirmed. And for him, I mean, each day that the two of you are together, he gets that experience again of like, oh, wait, maybe the rug doesn't get pulled out in the way that I feared that it does. So there's a way in which like the longevity of your relationship is healing to that little boy, who has had that experience, to know that that's not the only experience. That's not the only experience I have. Okay, well, I want to talk to you about this really great listener question that feels like, we didn't say to the Reimagine Love community, like, send us the perfect question for Lindsay, but this is the perfect question. I'm really excited to dive in with you. So let's talk to and about Skylar from Toronto, who uses he, him pronouns. And what Skylar writes is, hey, Alexandra, I'm 25, been dating someone 30 for the last 5 months, who is wonderful. He is emotionally available. Our values and our dreams align, and I feel seen with him. However, he is far more wealthy than me. Restaurants that he regularly eats at are ones I would only consider visiting on a special occasion. I grew up poor, and although I'm financially stable now, I still live on a strict budget. Hence, he often offers to pay for me. I'm sure many people want a rich partner, but it makes me deeply anxious. I love my life and I don't envy his wealth, but I feel some embarrassment whenever our wealth disparity arises. He's always understanding, curious, and respectful, but I feel uncomfortable with how our different experiences and approaches to money are. I've communicated my discomfort regarding him paying for me, but he says he's happy to provide for me without holding any expectations. Still, I don't know how to manage these feelings or even fully express what I'm feeling to him. I feel like I can't move forward in this relationship without addressing these feelings. Honestly, I feel the urge to run away. What should I do? All right, Lindsay, I'm going to give you first crack at this. What comes up for you right off the bat about Skylar?
So, Skylar, this is I thank you for sending in this question. Thank you for being so open and honest about it. I want to please tell you, please don't run. Please don't run, because here's where you're starting from a great place. You've already acknowledged that he is respectful and understanding, and that you've started the conversation about this, right? So you've taken that first step. My job here, Alexandra's job here, we're here to like help you get that much closer to what you need to do now, but you've already gone down this path. And he sounds great. And it sounds like you've had some important discussions, already. So here's how I want to help you. So people who have never had to worry about money, they've never had to worry about where their next meal comes from, they've never had to choose a week of food over going to the doctor or send food home, that whatever their financial situation is normalized for them growing up. And I expect that's what your partner has had, versus you, where you've had to fight for your pennies and figure out as an adult a way to manage what you grew up with what you have now. So I want to just tell you that it is possible for two people who come from these situations to have a successful relationship. So just know that, okay? But there are things that you have to do. So it is very easy for us in business and in life and in relationships to award the person or the entity with more money more power. It is very natural, whether you're the person having babies or taking care of the babies and someone else is working. It's very easy culturally, societally, to, without even thinking about it, defer to that person. So that is one thing that you need to recognize. And you're going to have a conversation about how that is natural to happen and how you don't want that to happen, right? So more money equals more control. Now, I also find that people who grow up with money can sometimes have a very laissez-faire attitude about money. So while it seems that your partner is being quite generous in saying, hey, I would love to try this new Michelin starred restaurant, and you hear the words Michelin star and you're like going into panic mode, and you say to your partner, that sounds amazing. I've heard about that place, but you know what? I don't know that I'm comfortable spending this money there. Your partner is on the surface being very generous by saying, don't worry, I'll take care of it. It's so not a problem. We're going to have the best time. But he's accommodating you, but not the way I want him to accommodate you. So this is what I'm getting to. It is my belief, and I talked to Chelsea Fagan of the Financial Diet about this in my book, and she's wonderful. You should check out her site. It is my belief that the person with more money needs to accommodate the person with less money. And when I say accommodate, I do not mean pay for. So let me be really clear. Accommodate does not mean pay for. Accommodate means understand. So let me give you an example. So you're at a party and you're with his friends, and they're all talking about going on ski trips when they grow up, or these fancy vacations, or lessons, or this, that, and the other, and it makes you very uncomfortable. It is your partner's job to hold your hand really tight, or look at you in the eye, or pull you aside later and say, hey, I know that's a privilege. I know that that is not normal. And I just want to make sure you're not uncomfortable with that. I got you. And not in a pity way, in a I understand you way. And I recognize where I came from. Again, it's so easy to normalize wealth and privileged circumstances that he doesn't realize how painful it is to pay for your meal. So this is where you come in. You need to explain to him that more money equals more control sometimes, and that you really want to make sure that that doesn't happen. You need to say, I'm happy to go to a Michelin starred restaurant, but I want to also pick the restaurants that we go to, and have you say, great, understand that we can get great food for lower prices, whatever you want to call it, at a level that makes sense for us, and still have a great night out together. And then you need to, you could go through my money chapter and answer all these questions, but there are things you have to discuss, because he sounds like he could be a great potential partner for you. But things like, you, for environmental and cost reasons, you make your coffee every morning, and he's going to pick your coffee shop and spending $10 every morning. That can become a problem in a long-term relationship if you don't have a conversation about it. If you think $50 is the maximum that you're going to spend on a handbag, and your partner's okay spending $5,000, you need to have a conversation about that. And money comes into play for every single little thing in our lives. So the tipping point, the tiniest question you can ask someone about money is how much money you make. That's not what money is about. And you need to have real conversations about how you can work together, and how he can understand what you came from and your fears and your anxieties about it.
Oh, Lindsay. Oh my God. I'm like looking at my notes, and yes, I'm like, check, check, check. You hit so many points that I wanted to make. It is right. Like that is, I'm right with you. I'm like so grateful that Skylar sent this question in. This is, my God, it's like spend a week coming to couples therapy with me, and you will see like this theme comes up over and over and over again, this idea of the accelerator and the brake. And, Skylar's boyfriend is the accelerator, and that is fueled by the wealth disparity. It may also be fueled by other, kinds of experiences. So that discrepancy is not worrisome, but it sure does need to get worked. And the reason we know it needs to get worked is that so far the solution that Skylar's boyfriend has come up with, to your point, it's okay. It's okay. I got you. That solution isn't working. Skylar still has this urge to run. So that tells us like that just because that isn't working, there's a need to kind of go deeper. And I have every confidence that inside Skylar's boyfriend's heart, the intent is like, I got you. Don't worry about it. And it really, I suspect that he means that to the marrow of his bones. And it is getting lost in translation for Skylar. That's not settling him down. Okay, great. And I love what you're saying about like the two of them have to approach together. In this man choosing Skylar, he is choosing to have a different positionality vis-a-vis his privilege, his wealth, his background. And it's the two of them together figuring out how to do this. And they're both, if and as the two of them are able to move in the direction that you're talking about, Lindsay, which is spot on, I suspect that Skylar will start to feel a kind of expansion inside of him, right? Once he feels validated that his perspective is completely valid and makes so much sense, then Skylar will, I suspect, feel a loosening and feel an expansion of possibility inside of him. And he gets a chance in this relationship to confront whatever stories that he has about people with money. I mean, our cultural narratives are about wealth equaling more better, but I think we also have some counter narratives about wealth equaling, being careless, being materialistic, being heartless. So it may be that part of what comes up inside of Skylar is some of those icky judgments that he doesn't want to have about this man he loves, but they are also part and parcel of his experience. So he gets a chance to kind of confront his own stories that he has about people with privilege because he loves this man and he respects this man, he admires this man, and this man spends money in a way that is confronting for Skylar. So I think it's all good. It's all good.
I think too, one more thing, I think Skylar should not be surprised if his partner gets annoyed or defensive at first about this, because I think it's easy for, let's call him the person of privilege in this relationship, for the person of privilege to think, I can't believe we're having this conversation. I told you I would. I pay for your dinner. Like I'm taking care of you. I don't understand. I'm trying to show you that it doesn't matter, but it does matter. And I think hopefully they'll both be able to give grace to one another to hear where this comes from. So that, and then I think it's also on Skylar to say, I know and I appreciate that you're taking care of me. Here's how I would like to be taken care of, because people don't know if you don't tell them.
That's right. And as they restore some balance, then maybe what Skylar can start to notice is, oh, I get that when he does do this generous thing, I can feel his pride. And his pride actually feels loving. It doesn't feel controlling. It doesn't feel flashy. I can actually feel that pride as love. But right now, they're polarized and they're kind of missing, and they haven't gotten kind of deep enough into this or relational enough into this for Skylar to be able to be like, oh, damn. Okay, yeah, I'll let your financial generosity in because I can feel your pride. I can feel the love, and I can let myself receive without feeling like somehow, whatever, I'm a sellout or I'm disappearing in this relationship or I'm a kept man or whatever it is. But they're not there yet. They're both part of a massive expansion program right now in a way that I think is going to be so good for both of them.
Let us know, Skylar, please, right back.
Keep us posted.
I have to say, you're so good. I love hearing you talk and go into situations and scenarios. And I only wish that you weren't teaching yet when I was at Northwestern, but I really wish I could have taken your class. I feel like I need an audit privilege now.
I was going to say, get your butt to Chicago. Come sit in anytime you want. My gosh.
I really would love to.
So fun. That would be so fun to have you. Okay, Lindsay, let's bring it home. Tell us where people can find you. We're going to obviously have links in the show notes to your fantastic book, Romances and Practicalities. But what else do you want people to know about how to get more of your good stuff?
You can get more of me. Instagram is my main platform at Lindsay Jill Roth or lindsayjillroth.com. Please comment, please write in. As a writer, you create something and it's in a vacuum until it gets released. And I'm finally able to hear people's thoughts. And I love talking to you about it. And I love hearing what people think. So reach out. I love it. And thank you so much for reading. And thanks for having me.
Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, Lindsay, for joining me and giving us a glimpse into romances and practicalities. I am sure lots of you are going to be checking this book out, so we've linked it in the show notes. I really love how Lindsay combines lighthearted, get-to-know-you topics with crucial conversations that are going to really support couples as they deepen their connection and assess what's next in their love story. Until next time, be well. Thank you for listening to our show. Our producers are Elizabeth Vogt and Mary Chan and Katie Pagich of Organized Sound Productions. Our theme music was composed by Slade Warnkin. The show is executive produced by me, Dr. Alexandra Solomon. Do you have a relationship question that you want answered on the show? Visit reimagininglove.com to send in a written or audio question. Questions can be about intimate partnerships, family relationships, friendships, you name it. If you're looking for more love and relationship content, you can find me on Instagram at dr.alexandra.solomon or visit my website, dralexandrasolomon.com, where you'll find my blog as well as the Intimate Relationships 101 e-course based off of the popular class I teach at Northwestern University. Thank you for listening and see you next week here on Reimagining Love.